All right, so we got a little bit of an update here on the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package as Joe Manchin, the corrupted ghoul from West Virginia, has decided to write an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal, basically describing exactly why he is not going to support a $3.5 trillion budget resolution package. And so I can't actually show you the op-ed that he wrote because the Wall Street Journal has a paywall, and fuck their paywall. So I'm going to read to you from Politico here, basically summarizing what he said. So Manchin to Democrats, pause social spending plan. So Senator Joe Manchin urged Democrats Thursday to pause their effort to pass a $3.5 trillion social spending plan, but suggested he would be open to passing a pared back version of it. Okay, so this is exactly what we knew was coming the entire time, right? We knew that Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, the 9 corporate Democrats in the House that are trying to water this down, we knew that this plan was coming. How did we know that? And we're going to get to this in a little bit, but we knew this all the way back from that leaked call between an Exxon lobbyist and basically an organization that exposed them. And the Exxon lobbyist was describing that he was feeding Joe Manchin talking points specifically to water down the climate aspects of this bill. And so we knew this entire thing was coming. We knew that he was going to pull out all of the stops with the talking points that he's going to use in this. And so what exactly were those talking points? So the West Virginia Democrat said that he would not support the $3.5 trillion package or anywhere near that level of additional spending without further clarity on the economic impact of inflation and the national debt on current government programs. So again, using the national debt tagline, which is exactly how ExxonMobil wanted him to go and phrase this, using the national debt, fear-mongering about the national debt. Okay, the same Joe Manchin who will not even blink while passing an inflated military budget, the same Joe Manchin who is perfectly willing to give billions of dollars to fossil fuel companies as subsidies, the same Joe Manchin who wants to keep corporate taxes low and doesn't want to actually reduce the deficit by doing the things that we actually could, like taxing the rich and defunding the military budget, the same Joe Manchin who supports all of those other corrupt things that blow up the national debt is now worried about the national debt when it comes to investing in things like infrastructure, like the child family tax credit that is expanding Medicare, expanding Medicaid, getting people cheap prescription drug prices, and investing in climate legislation. Only when it comes to those good things, he starts caring about the national debt. So it's complete bullshit, but we all knew this. So he continues, quote, Democratic congressional leaders propose to pass the largest single spending bill in history with no regard to rising inflation, crippling debt, or the inevitability of future crises. Okay, so Joe Manchin has the audacity to say that inflation and the national debt are bigger future crises than the largest wildfire in California's history, alongside many other wildfires that are simultaneously going in the western portion of the United States and obliterating entire towns? Or is it this? I mean, New York's infrastructure completely unprepared for climate change. I mean, we saw videos like this that were coming out of the New York subway station. Our infrastructure is not built to handle the climate crisis, and Joe Manchin is seeing videos like this. This was like one day ago, and Joe Manchin has the audacity to come out here and say that the national debt is the future crisis that we should be worrying about. Not only should we be more worried about the national debt than climate change, but he wants to water down the climate change aspects of this bill. So this is what we're looking at, right? Or was it this maybe? The actual literal portal to hell that opened up in the Gulf of Mexico? I mean, these are the types of things that we have been seeing repeatedly, over and over and over again. Just complete dystopian hellscape images and videos that we are seeing on a regular basis. Climate change is staring us in the face and saying, do something about it right the fuck now. And this $3.5 trillion plan is nowhere close to being enough to actually tackle the problem of climate change, but it's an initial step. And Joe Manchin, being the bulwark for ExxonMobil, comes out there and won't even support this moderate proposal. So it's a complete fucking joke, right? I mean, this is what we're seeing. And Joe Manchin is telling you to worry about the inevitability of future crises surrounding crippling debt. The national debt. Okay, so first of all, again, just a reminder on modern monetary theory and how the spending works, okay? Government spending is not a one-to-one correlation where you need to pull in X amount of taxes so that you can spend X amount of dollars. The way that this works is if you invest in climate infrastructure up front, it's going to be cheaper in the long term, okay? It will inevitably add more to the debt and worsen inflation in the future if you don't invest in climate legislation right now, upgrade our infrastructure, prepare it, because then you're going to be paying for all of the damages and the costs that are associated with a collapsing climate, okay? This is not really that complicated in terms of spending priorities. All he's doing right now is defending ExxonMobil. He's defending the fossil fuel industry. There's no other actual advantage to not investing in climate change right now, even from an economic perspective, because you're going to end up paying more down the line. So it doesn't make sense from any perspective whatsoever unless you take a bunch of donations from ExxonMobil and you're being their stenographer right now. It's really as simple as that. And so he continues, Manchin's op-ed comes as the House and Senate Democrats are working through the August recess to finalize language for the social spending plan. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has a deadline of September 15th for committees to complete their work, so we only got like 2 more weeks left, and progressives want to see the entire package pass before September 27th, which was the date that Nancy Pelosi made a deal with those 9 corporate Democrats to pass the partisan version of this bill, the bipartisan version of the $1 trillion infrastructure spending that they managed to get. So we got about a month to work through this, right? Literally half of that to write the actual legislation, and then another 2 weeks to actually get it passed. So Joe Manchin should not be negotiated with. Why? Because again, as I've been saying throughout the entirety of this video and throughout the entirety of these infrastructure negotiations, Exxon lobbyist brags about regular access to Joe Manchin. So we went over this, and I'll link my video talking about the actual the breakdown of exactly what this was in the description. But basically, we had an Exxon lobbyist who was coming out and openly describing how they are going to sabotage this $3.5 trillion bill for the sake of ExxonMobil's bottom line. Okay, so this is not complicated. Joe Manchin is writing this op-ed that he just put in the Wall Street Journal. He's writing that for ExxonMobil lobbyists that are then funding his campaigns. Okay, this is the dynamic that we have right now. You're not negotiating between progressives and leftists who want a big, bold spending plan versus, you know, moderates in the House and the Senate. You're negotiating between what is in the best interest of the American people and ExxonMobil. Those are the two sides of this negotiation process that is happening, and yet you still have a bunch of people who are pretending as if this is happening in good faith. And so AOC had something to say about this. She said Manchin has weekly huddles with Exxon and is one of the many senators who gives lobbyists their pen to write so-called bipartisan fossil fuel bills, which is like the $1 trillion one that they managed to pass through the Senate. And it's killing people, our people, at least 12 last night that died in the flooding, and sick of this bipartisan corruption that masquerades as clear-eyed moderation. And she continues saying, fossil fuel corporations and dark money is destroying our democracy, country, and planet. All day, our community has been pulling bodies out of homes from the flood, entire families, and we're supposed to entertain lobbyist talking points about why we should abandon people and do nothing. So she's 100% correct there, okay? ExxonMobil is writing this op-ed for Joe Manchin, okay? He literally is just a stenographer, a mouthpiece for the corrupt interests that fund his campaigns and that keep him engaging in the way that he has been with our political system, okay? So there's absolutely no excuse, absolutely no reason. As Bernie Sanders already said, the negotiations already happened. We started at the $6 trillion number. Now we're at 3.5, which is already inadequate to tackle the problem of climate change. You're not negotiating with Joe Manchin. You're negotiating with Exxon. Why would you move a single inch? You need to have the entire progressive caucus, which has been somewhat unified so far throughout this process, Bernie Sanders, the rest of the Democrats who support the bill in the Senate, and you just have to get these motherfuckers to fall in line, okay? There's no way around it other than that. Get them to fall in line. Don't budge a single goddamn cent on this bill.